start off. That's not what I wanted. Too many windows set up. So I'm using a piece of software called OBS or OBS Studio. And what it allows me to do is it allows me to make nice little pictures where I'm sitting here talking and I can have other things shown on the screen. And the thought, whether it's true or false, is that this will allow us to kind of connect so that you don't just have somebody droning onto you. But that means that I'm not presenting. And when you're not presenting, you get reduced down to, you can see on my screen, I'm just this guy right here. So I want to talk to you about what I'm going to do about that. And I want to give you guys a little bit of a pointer so that if it fails for me, you guys can make this work for you as well. So if you have your Cisco Webex meeting set up, you can come up here and click on the layout button. And you can pick one of these different organizations. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick focus, and that'll give me something that looks like this. Hi, Andrew. That was purely random. But now you can come in here and you can say, okay, I want to lock it on a specific person. I'm going to try to lock it for everyone. And that should make this change on your screens for, as well as on mine. But if it gets knocked off, just remember, come over here. You can pick focus, right? Then you can come in over here. You can click on the little lock, and you can say who you want to lock on. And once you do, we get the infinite progressions of me. Hi, me. See if I can move over. No, I don't have a big enough window. All right. You can end up focusing right on whatever I'm actually presenting from my personal camera. And we can do this, and that can allow me to do things like, talk to you while things are going on, right? Because I can pop in here and, and kind of put on a different screen just because I have control of my camera through OBS Studio. One other thing I think I want to talk about is I use most of this display area, and what happens sometimes is that edges get cut off. So the other thing you can do is if you make this full screen, right, you can come over and you can and now I'm forgetting how to do this. All right, I will work on this, but there was a way to pop those out last semester. And apparently over the holidays, I've forgotten how to do that. Or I'm just imagining it. Oh, well, we will, I'm not remembering how to pop out the chat and the participants now. I was doing it last semester. But regardless, I think we're okay. So that's just a little bit of the using Webex tricks that I've been using this semester, and hopefully that works for you and will help this go a little more smoothly. So with that in mind, let's kind of start getting started. Let's see, starting screen. So we are in CSCI 4470. Open source software. In general, I don't mind you turning on your video and your microphones, but please, if you're not talking, turn off the microphones. What happens is any noise coming in will disrupt the stream. It'll switch. It's not fully duplex. So when you hear a lot of that chattering, that's often noise in the background. switching from one audio, forcing it to switch from the audio of the input of one person to another. So if we don't do that, that's great. The other thing is, I'm actually taping from the OBS studio. This was the other thing I wanted to tell you. I'm taping from the OBS studio. I'm recording from there. Again, it gives me options that recording from Webex doesn't give, but it means that you guys don't get the notification that I'm taping. So you can't yell at me when I'm not taping when I'm supposed to be. So I will not be upset if before every meeting, one or more of you asks me if I have the recorder on. I've gone through half a lecture before, and that's not the optimal way to be doing things. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We want to be useful. We want to make sure we do all this stuff. And I'm still bugged that I can't get the participants and chat window to pop out so that I can actually have them up while I'm still looking at other things. All right. So, any questions before we get going? Because the sun was too bright. Close. That's actually a good one. I like that one as well. No, it's actually because the sun has about 1 million degrees already, and I know that it's not really 1 million degrees, but it has 1 million degrees already, or multiple thousands of degrees. All right, so that's a holdover from CS1. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to come up with a suitable joke every class, but we will do our best. And you guys are always welcome to send some jokes my way. I will give you credit. Maybe. If it's a bad one, I'll give you credit. So today what we want to do is we actually want to go over... Nope. I got to get back in the groove. We want to go over a number of things. We're going to start off by going over the syllabus, and then we're going to go over the introduction. And hopefully, as we do that, if any of you are confused, you won't be. And if any of you aren't confused, maybe we'll make you confused. I don't know. This is open source software. It's spring semester 2021. The open source software course has a kind of an interesting history. I used to work at a place called Kitware. Back in 2006 to, I don't know, 2015 or something, or thereabouts. And Kitware was founded by Dr. William Schroeder, and had Dr. Luis Ibanez was one of the major contributors there. That was about the same time, 2006, 2007 was about the same time that Arcos was funded. And some of the funding from Arcos went into the development of this course. And the cool thing was, well, Kitware is an open source company. They actually make and support open source software. If you've attended any of my stuff, you've probably heard about them, VTK, ITK. We'll go into some of those a little later in some of the modules. But VTK, ITK, if you're familiar with build systems, they originated CMake. These were in support of government contracts. They were large collaborative projects, including GE and the University of Utah and Harvard and a bunch of places for doing medical research and visualization. They've continued on. They work with Sandia and Los Alamos National Labs, doing data visualization for large-scale finite element computations. Just a lot of different libraries that they support and that they use in their business system. So it's kind of a cool thing that we have such a company in this area that's pretty active. But back in the fall of 2007, they worked with Professor Murthy to kind of develop the first iteration of this course. And you'll see that we give them a lot of credit throughout the course, and we actually follow a lot of their outline and notes fairly closely still. They did this for a while. Dr. Ibanez is now down with Google in New York City. Dr. Schroeder has become a mountain man, or a very nice cabin, but he lives up in Maine near Arcadia now. He's retired or semi-retired from kitware. And Professor Morthy retired a year and a half or 2 years ago, depending on. We kept trying to keep him around, and he kept trying to not be kept around. So we're fortunate that we had him for as long as possible. Open source software. We'll discuss business models and some stuff later in the semester, but there's nothing keeping you from getting paid for doing open source software. However, there's something keeping you getting paid for just giving access to the software, because if the software is freely available, you have to do more than just have the software. So one of the things that we like to do is we also like to give credit. Often, I don't always. When I miss it, I miss by it's not an intentional miss, but we try to give credit, and we try to develop this course in an open source fashion as well. So all of the notes in this course that I generate or that are generated by my predecessors are licensed under the Creative Commons. Creative Commons is kind of like an open source license for documentation, and we are very liberal on this. And in fact, we work with a group called Teaching Open Source to make our software, or to make the course available to anybody who wants to use it. I'll get to that in just a second with you guys so you can see how you can use it. But we allow you to do a lot of things, and we'll get into some of this as well. But the only thing that we actually ask is attribution. So I try to do this whenever possible, but you'll see a lot of places where I try to attribute to other people their contributions. If you're not getting paid and you promise to give it away, or even if you are getting paid for some aspect of the code, but you're giving the code away, you deserve to be attributed, at least. That's kind of a minimum. And so this is our licensing, and we are very grateful for our originators, Dr. Morthy, Dr. Schroeder, Dr. Benez. And we're also thankful to Red Hats, who supported us for many years, and a lot of these slides were updated and developed under funding from Red Hat. And of course, Sean O'Sullivan provided the original $2 million grant that got this whole thing off the ground. So that's a little quick history of kind of how this course came about. If you're in Arcos, you'll get something similar for Arcos in just a few hours. But I'm not going to go into this a lot every semester or every class, other than to kind of point out for some of the slides who created them. But it is nice to get this acknowledgement out of the way and be able to move forward. Cast of characters. This is me. If I'm on campus, I'm at Amos Eaton 207. I haven't been on campus in almost a year. I think the last time I was on campus, I went to the mailroom over across the street from down the hill from the North Lot to pick up the PC that I'm presenting on, because I was killing my Mac trying to run Webex and everything else that I needed to run just to present to you guys. So I haven't been in that office since last March. I'm wondering whether the cockroaches have taken over. It was an uphill battle while I was there, but I was winning. I'm fairly certain I was winning. Now I'm not so sure. You can reach me at wdturner.gmail.com, or you can reach me, I should actually put my turnu2 at rpi.edu in there as well. So please feel free to email me if you need to. We have half a TA, Kevin McKenzie. Kevin, are you here? I don't know if any of my TAs made it on. Yes, Kevin, you want to say a few words? You don't have to, but if you want to, just let me know. All right, I'm not hearing Kevin, so I'm going to assume that, I was going to say, I'm going to assume that his mic isn't working. But if you come on later, we'll let you say hi. He is you worked on, we had a project with Exago, I think it was, an external company. They were doing Apache traffic routing development in open source, and he was one of the people who was working on that out of Arcos. So he does have some experience in this, and hopefully he'll be able to get you out of all the jams that I intentionally or not put you in. Okay. We also have some mentors. These are generally some people you may know if you've been around Arcos at all. And I recognized while I was waiting for you guys to come in, I recognized a lot of my students from Arcos. Hunter Harris, Jeremy Max, Avery Summer, Stephen Vinzile, and Ethan Witten. We're going to meet here every Tuesday and Thursday, Tuesday and Friday. I don't know why I keep saying Tuesday and Thursday, and I don't know why I thought today's date was 2/2. But we meet here every Tuesday and Friday from 12:20 to 2:10. Like I kind of indicated before everybody was on, I have never run this course without discussions. And so I'm a little wondering, curious as to how we're going to run this. I'm going to encourage that to the extent we prove able to do it, that we try to keep discussions a part of the class. So, we will do our best here. So, with that in mind, attendance at class, we need to tape everything because of time zone issues. It's one of the requirements, and it's just a good idea. But if you can attend class, please do, and please try to engage as much as possible, either by typing into the chat or if you have some questions or witty banter, just unmute, and we'll recognize you, and you can banter away, I guess. I'm going to ask one of the major issues with this distributed or with this asynchronous education is that when I need to tell you something and I'm not requiring attendance, it's hard for me to get the word to you, right? So if I want to remind you or encourage you to turn in something that's due on Friday, and I'm trying to tell you on Tuesday, and you queue up 4 weeks worth of lectures to watch them all in one big hunk, you're not going to get the lecture. You're not going to get the reminder. Or if there's some issue with something we're trying to do with one of the labs, and I try to let you know that, and you don't check it, you're not going to get that information. So I'm going to ask that you review the course material within 24 hours of every class. Make me sound like a chipmunk. Review it at double speed if you need to. That's fine. We are going to try to run labs as asynchronously as possible, or as synchronously as possible, because I think there's a benefit to having the ability to discuss things and have actual mentors and myself available to help you with that. But if you do have a time zone issue and you can't make lab on Friday between 12:20 to 2:10, or if you can't make class Fridays between 12:20 and 2:10, then please let me know, and we will do our best to try to figure out some way to get, if I have one mentor in particular who can't make this time for labs, so we may be able to do something to group you up into an off hours asynchronous kind of group. So please let me know. Please email me at wdturner@gmail.com, and we'll try to get something set up. If not, by this first lab, by subsequent labs. We don't use the RPI LMS. I apologize for that if that's something you love. But we have a philosophy of in the open source world of and actually in the commercial world, it's called eating your own dog food. If you create something, it has to be tested, and if it's good enough for others to use, it should be good enough for you to use. So we will do that as much as possible, and because of that, we're going to use Submiti instead of LMS. And we're going to actually use Discord because maybe I hit Discord later. I'll see if I have it in there. If not, I'll post a link. We'll use Submiti. You should be on it already. If you click on this link, you should be there, and you should be able to log in and see the class. You'll see that I already have the Lab 1 submission set up. Right now I have discussion forums set up as well, but I think the goal is to actually replace the discussion forum with Discord. Let me know if you have issues accessing Discord, and we'll try to work something out. But that's a direction we're heading. I think I sent a link in my email message. Right now I have the Submiti discussion forum open, like I said. It's likely we will close that out. And well, we'll worry about that later. For right now, we can just use the discussion forum. I thought I had something set up. I know I have something set up. I just don't know. Okay. Sorry about that. Please check your chat. I will fix this up in the notes, but the link to Discord I just piped into the chat, or pasted into the chat. Again, if you have issues with Discord, let me know. I thought I had that in the syllabus, and I thought I had that on the slides, but apparently I did that for Arcos and not for this class. All right. So that's kind of the first initial part of this. Goals of this class, we have some fairly simple goals. This is kind of a survey course in some regards. We want to start building an expertise in open source software. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about philosophy. We want you to know how to develop. We want to know why you develop an open source software. We want you to know the benefits, and we want you to know some of the drawbacks to open source software as well. So we're going to get you familiar with developing open source. The cool thing is that many of the advances in how software is developed actually come right out of the open source development field. So we will be using, in general, we'll be promoting things like agile development. We don't formally require you to. This isn't a software design course, so we don't formally require agile development, but we will show you the tools like Git that you need. We'll show you some issue trackers. We'll talk about all of that stuff in that context, so you'll have a good idea of the methods of developing open source software. We want you to learn some new stuff. We want you to understand. The most important thing you can understand is that, particularly with open source, when it's out there, you can learn it. And we want you to be willing and able to go in. I like to liken development of software to being Sherlock Holmes or Dr. Watson. You have to actually dig in. You have to search things out. Debugging is much the same. You actually need to be in there thinking critically. And we want you to have that confidence that you know and are eager to learn these new technology stacks. Almost no project is developed from scratch by one person and withstands time. So we want you to be able to read and understand good code. We want you to write good code, but more importantly, we want you to be able to go into somebody else's code and figure out what they're doing, because you will do a lot of that if you continue in software engineering. We're going to ask that you work on a collaborative team project. That doesn't mean we're going to kick you out if you decide to do a project and you're by yourself, but we're going to encourage you to work together. And that's going to be kind of the goal. And we'll encourage you to use collaborative tools in order to encourage other people to join, even in those instances where you're working by yourself. There are project and diversity issues in any project. It's important. The collaborative environment is as important as the technology when you're searching for a group to join. Make sure that you understand the environment, the culture, and that it's something that you can contribute to, rather than spend all of your time fighting with your co-developers. Make a culture that's open and inviting and welcomes diverse individuals and interests. And here's the final kind of goal: is for those of you who aren't graduating and who aren't in Arcos. A lot of these projects, any good project, has an infinite term. So it takes a long time for projects to actually die off if they're well done and serve a need. So we want you to think about how you would take your project and continue it. And one of the ways to continue it would be in Arcos. I just realized that we do have a couple of our TAs here. I'm seeing Hunter, mentors here. Hunter is here. Jeremy Max is here. I'm not seeing Avery. Steve Van Zyl. No, Steve's not here. And I'm not. I think Ethan he's the one that actually has a conflict. So, okay. So if you guys want to say hi, you're welcome to, or you're welcome just to. There we go. We got a howdy from Hunter down in the chat. So they will be helping us out, and they've already contributed by helping me with some WSL testing. The learning outcomes are remarkably like the goals, but we want you to understand open source software tools and community, open source licensing, testing and version control, and these are this is the why. This is the why. This is the community how. This is the technical how, and this is some cool ways to go about doing the development and some cool technologies. And we want you to get a little bit of all of those. This is the syllabus, but we essentially have 3 different areas. In the first part, we're going to talk about, some initial stuff, some foundations, history, licensing, etc. And then we'll talk about some tools, and probably up through about there. And then we kind of get up through about here. And then we start looking at some tools and paradigms. How do you develop? What's out there to develop with? And then in the last part of the course, we kind of talk about applications, some stuff that's out there. We'll use some open source software. One of the ones we've been using the last couple of semesters is TensorFlow and Docker. But these we are open to different things in this area. If you have a specific itch that you want to scratch, a particular thing you want to learn, bring it up. If there's enough people interested, heck, I've got nothing better to do than completely rewrite 1/12 of the course or 2/12 of the course. We'll see what we can do. Grading criteria, we have 2 quizzes. We'll have them on the 5th of March and the 20th of April, I believe. We have a project analysis paper that's due near the end of February. What that is actually going to be is I want you to look at some open source communities, and I want you to, this is just before we create our own projects. So I want you to go out and look at communities and see what makes them attractive to you and what makes them not attractive to you. What things are you looking for in an open source project, in an open source community you want to join. And the idea behind that is I want you to look critically at other projects so that you can consider what you want to do when you build your own project. And that's, like I said, that'll be just before we create our project teams and move into our own projects. We have 11 labs. I managed to work out the schedule so that I always do a lecture on a Tuesday. This is the lecture you're getting today, and then a lab on a Friday. So we will give a lecture, we'll talk about something, and then we'll go and give you an opportunity to practice it the following Friday. Hopefully I didn't say Thursday, the following Friday, right? And like I said, I'm going to try to use some tools to break this up into small groups and give you some mentor and TA support so that we can have some discussions in those in particular. I'm happy with discussions here as well, but discussions in those in particular. And then at the end, we're going to have, you're going to, somewhere after we do our paper, we're going to break up into project teams. And then for the rest of the semester, you'll work on your project, and that's going to take about 40% of your grade there. So 60% up here, 40% down here. Here's the Discord. Booyah! I knew I couldn't have forgotten it completely. All right. Grade distribution's pretty standard. I prefer to curve tests and leave these standard. Other professors do it differently, but what you can expect is that I'll adhere pretty closely to these. But if everybody blows my tests, and quite honestly, it should be a fairly easy tests. They're not intended to be tricks. I would prefer to curve here or here rather than curve here. It just makes it more understandable from my standpoint. I might mess up on a test, and that means, a curve is essentially an admission that I made the test harder than it should have been, as demonstrated by the group dynamics, group performance on the test. So I prefer to correct it at the source of the error. We have a Discord community, OSS Spring 2021. I needed something to reach all of you at once. That's why I was using Submiti. Please join this. Next week, I'm going to kill the discussion forum in Submiti probably, just because I don't want to look in 100 different places for messages. It's too easy for me. It's not because I don't like to look in all those places. It just becomes too easy for me to think I've answered something and to not have answered it. So, if we keep everything in one channel or the other, that's more appropriate, I think. Discord gives us a little bit more flexibility than Submiti. I love the fact that Submiti generally, I think it's really good for technical. I'm going to consider whether I want to get rid of Submiti or not, because it actually is a good way to disseminate things to the entire class, and it sends you email when I tell it needs to. So I may back off on that, but please join the Discord. It's a much more informal and flexible discussion forum, and you can answer to one another directly as opposed to answering to the whole group. One thing to keep in mind is that we are an inclusive organization. So if I don't want to witness bad behavior, right? That is something that will count against you. Probably count against your project grades if you're like flame warring and calling people names and things. Discussion is fine. You don't have to agree. I don't really want you all to agree on everything, but please keep it civil. I'll give a little grace on labs. The labs will be due, midnight the day of the we come in, the lab will have a due date. And of course I can't see it from here, but I think I made it due 24 hours after the date it's assigned. Yeah. I give you till the next Monday. Okay, so I give you, it's due on Fridays, or you're supposed to do it on Fridays. I give you until Monday to submit it. I think that's enough time to do a lab. It's not a big burden. You should be able to get most of it done during class time. If you're late, I'll give you a 10% penalty. I guess it's 1 minute late or something like that. After that, you can submit your lab up to a week late for a 20% penalty, and then after that, I'm not going to be accepting the late assignments. Again, I'm hoping for discussions. We'll hope to keep that going. We're not going to take attendance, but if you can't discuss, if you don't attend, so that kind of throws that in there. And we do require formal excuses, and we're going to have a lot of discussion in this course, and we're going to do a lot of things collaboratively. The stuff we don't do collaboratively, like quizzes, like submitting your own lab work, discussing your lab work, working through some of the issues, helping one another out is fine. You need to actually write up your lab report and submit it yourself. If you don't, you can be penalized. You will be penalized. But that's, this is not quite the same as something like CS1 where, I'm not going to go over every line. I'm going to look for similarities. There's only 40 of you, 50 of you. I can do that. Discussion is fine. Help one another out. Submit your own work, right? The results of your own experiments, your own write-up in your own words. All right. Any questions about that? I think that was a very long introduction to the course, made longer by the fact that I forgot where I put the Discord. Okay, none of this should be new to any of you guys. All right, any questions then? All right, so let's go back for a second. Let's go into our Wayback Machine. I told you that we're developing this course, this open source course, as an open source course. And it is available under ARCOS/CSCI 4470-open source. And you can get it. And you can come in here and you can download it, right? You can clone the repository. You can come in here and you can open issues. I did a test issue, right? I'm not going to promise to ride herd on these and get an issue closed every night, but you can put in issues. You can put in pull requests, right? We had a big pull request. We've had a couple of pull requests. We get a couple of pull requests every semester. We had a really big pull request called Grand Reorganizing from Steve Van Zyl when he took the class last semester, summer 2019. So this is absolutely an open source project. I share this with a group I belong to called Teaching Open Source and Posse, professors of open source software education or something like that. They have access to all of this. We are, as Steve's note kind of indicated, we're kind of reorganizing these. Assignments we will use for your projects, for your papers. I'll update that before I assign the paper in a couple weeks. Labs and lectures have now been modified into modules. We used to have these separately, but now we have 11 modules. These are the current modules that we're planning to give. This is today's module, right? And we've included the lab in there as well. And you can look ahead or look behind, right? I took a first look at lecture 2 yesterday. Well, not a first look, but so these are the 11 modules that we're actually planning on going through. We have approximately 11 weeks of 11 normal weeks. We have some presentation days. We have some other stuff going on. So there's about 11 lectures. If you want to come in and look at resources, what you'll find out, if you want to find out some reading material, I haven't checked all of these, so some of these links may be broken. What I tend to do is I tend to, as we go through, add additional links down at the bottom. So this is something that I put in last time. Jono's big on community. He's written some books. I've got a couple of his books. And then we have this also open source field guide, which I think is kind of cool. So I will continue keeping that up to date, but if you're looking for things to read, this is a good place to look. If you're looking for our schedule, this is a good place to look. We just got done with this part right here, which is the syllabus. I'm about to launch into history and additional material. Here's the lab on the introductory lab. So all of this stuff is here. You can see our schedule. I'll try to keep that updated as we go along. When we get into tests, you'll be able to go in here and look at quizzes. I haven't updated this for the next quizzes because I don't know what to update it to until we've kind of gotten into the class. And then if you want, these are all the quizzes from previous semesters. Although I may have not, looks like I may have missed the second test last year. So what I'll do this year is I will make in the sample quizzes directory, I will make a directory spring 2021, but I won't check it in until after I've given the test. So you guys can't get the test ahead of time. But, these are all tests that I've given before. That you can look at and kind of plan on your resources. And I'll call those out as we go along. So anyway, that's the way we're organized. I do accept pull requests. If you want to develop a new module, I've got some ideas for stuff I'd like to see. If you want to modify an existing module, let me know. I'm happy to develop these things collaboratively as much as possible. Labs open on Fridays and are due Mondays. Yes, that is true. As with all things submitting, there will be a due date. I will, so you will see the due date on there. And then after you're a day late, it's 10% off. And then from 1 day till, more than 1 day till a week late is 20% off. Okay. All right. I strongly, here's one more thing I wanted to show you guys, if I can figure out how to get there. During the semester, you're going to be asked to work on your project. And I'll go into more of the requirements of that when we get closer to the project time. But one of the things that I want to kind of point out to you is that you're going to set some goals and you're going to miss those goals. I can almost guarantee it. Any non-trivial goal is going to end up being changed or pushed or missed. That's software. What we want you to do is we want you to show how you overcome obstacles, how you push forward, and how you get to something that is usable and good and cool, no matter what the issues you have to do to get there are. Right? So one of the things we ask you to do is to document your activities. And documentation can be issues, it can be pull requests, it can be commits. I want to look at commits just a second for this. Contributors for a second, just for this project. Okay. You see all these humps. These are semesters that I've taught the course. Right. This just kind of blurred together from spring and fall. So these are all the semesters, or not that I've taught it, but that somebody's taught it. And these are my commits over a single semester. Right? So since the first of the year, I already have 11 commits in this repository. And we can go to that. And I'm not going to tell you that they're all, that's not what I wanted to do, that they're all wonderful commits, you know, but getting commits is not really the issue. If you're spending more than an hour or two a week, you know, this will be in the hundreds by the time we're done with this. Come on. Yeah, December I have 27 commits in this repository already, just for getting ready and preparing for you guys and getting the week 1 and week 2 stuff loaded. Okay. So my point is that contributions are not hard to get, but you do have to work consistently on it. We want you putting in a few hours on your project every week. If you're doing that, you should be pushing stuff to the repository either on the main master branch, if that's the way you're organized, or on a branch. And we'll talk about that branching when we talk about Git next week. Don't wait till the end of the semester. You know, you don't have to do it now because you don't have a project. But once the project starts, we want you to do these consistent commits. It doesn't take much, right? Just getting ready for this course gave me 11 commits last week. Again, they're not all necessarily earth-shattering, but they are useful and important and were necessary to get this, you know, kind of set up and running. All right. So if we go into modules, we go into introduction, and we go into history, what we find out is that we have a make file and a source. And if you download this and you install Sphinx, which is our which is a required tool, and you do all the other cool things that you need to do, you can come into your introduction, and you have Linux installed. You can come into your introduction and you can go into 01 Linux or 01 history, right? CD history. And you can do something like make slides. And what it will get you is down in, and there's a few things you have to install. So this isn't necessarily trivial. It's not necessarily very hard. You all should be able to do this. And if you run into problems, we are more than happy to help you. But if you now go down into build, slides, you can see that we have an index.html. Right, and that was just generated. And we can also do something like make PDF LaTeX, or its companion LaTeX PDF. Okay, we can run some stuff. Right, install the stuff we need. And we can generate our own slides. And if you generate the slides one, the LaTeX PDF one will look a little bit differently. But if you generate the slides one, it'll look something like this. You can open it up. You can look at it in your browser. Let's see, is this the right one? No, this is Linux. Okay. And we're going to go through these got about an hour left, so maybe this won't be the shortest class I've had. So let's talk about open source software. If there are no questions about the how we're running the course, we'll just kind of segue right into here. One of the things, we've gotten these modules from different people at different times, so different modules may be generated differently. This is one of my favorite ways to do it, to use Sphinx to allow us to generate PDFs or HTML or slides. Again, I'd like to give credit. William Schroeder and Luis Ibanez started these, teaching as adjuncts from Kitware. Professor Krishnamurthy kind of succeeded them in the course and ran it for many years, and I'm trying to resurrect it and teach it on a regular or semi-regular basis as much as possible. A lot of what we're going to talk about in this section is just kind of environmental things. It talks about the underpinnings of open source that are hopefully, I just realized I am not in the right window for you guys, am I?